Elden Ring, a very anticipated Souls game developed by FromSoftware, released February 25th, 2022. And my god, what a game they have made. Before we start, I'm going to quickly bring up that I am playing the PS5 version of this game. Now, Elden Ring is another one of the Souls games, but of course what's different about this game is that it's the first Souls game to go open world. Now, to be honest, I've enjoyed many of the Souls games like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, and a couple of others like The Surge. I was a bit worried about this game or genre going open world. Honestly, what worried me the most is that the game's open world was going to be boring. Kind of like most open worlds nowadays, which is really the Ubisoft open world games, because those games are really boring. No offense to anyone that loves those games. But, you know, in the end, Elden Ring's open world just came out spectacular. And it's also not boring. The game's open world is filled with a bunch of enemies and bosses that you can discover by exploring this open world. And just by looking at the world, it's visually breathtaking just to take in for a moment. Really, the more you explore and progress, honestly, the more crazy it gets. Like that floating academy you see at some point in the game, crazy. Or discovering the royal capital for the first time. You do also get rewarded for exploring some of the areas of the map, like if you explore some of the caves and beat whatever bosses within the caves, you'll get either an item or a unique weapon. Apparently George R.R. Martin was involved in helping Miyazaki with Elden Ring. Now, to be honest, I kind of don't know what he did here exactly as of recording this, but I'm sure whatever he was involved with was great. Not a lot of open world games are fun to explore. Like I said earlier, most of them nowadays are pretty boring. You know, all you do, explore around, it gets stale, so on and so on. I mean, even Halo Infinite kind of struggled with this, but not so much. Really, there's really not that much open world games that kind of feel unique, you know? That's not boring and it just feels alive. I think some games that come to mind when accomplishing that is Skyrim and Breath of the Wild, along with Red Dead Redemption 2 and of course Grand Theft Auto, as we all know. This is until Elden Ring released. The open world here is, like I said, spectacular. I mean, the moment when I found a random elevator in the woods and discovered Seofa River, now that was a crazy random discovery, holy shit. The game's world is filled with these graces, which are like the bonfires from Dark Souls. Graces are pretty much that. Some graces guide you to a specific direction, kind of like it's leading you to the game's story boss that you're required to kill to progress the story. The graces can also be used to fast travel and do a lot more, like leveling up, adding or upgrading your flasks, also adjusting how many flasks you want. Like, do you want, let's just say you can have up to 6 flasks, and you want to have 3 to heal up and 3 to recover your MP. You can do that. You can also adjust your Ash of War, sort your chest, pass time, and some more. There are many classes to choose from at the start of the game. Once you choose your class, you can customize your character's appearance and name, which is some pretty cool stuff, you know. The gameplay is pretty easy to understand. You have a health bar, which obviously displays your health, a stamina bar, which depletes when you sprint, evade, block, and attack. A lot of your actions are tied to the stamina bar. And you also finally have an MP bar, which depletes when you use magic, special skills, skill attacks, and summons. The game's combat is easy to learn and it's very engaging, and that's why I love it so much. But of course, when facing the bosses, they're not going to be easy to take down. Yes, they will be difficult, but it's up to you to not make it difficult. That may be a little hard to understand. Like I said, these games are really engaging, and you're really going to have to learn the boss's attack patterns to see an opening to attack them. This is kind of what I love about the Souls genre, because they bring out the best in you. Almost all the bosses feel unique. Some bosses are unique, some bosses feel like they were reused, just buffed up a bit, which you don't really tend to notice that much, but it happens. The game is challenging, yes, but when you overcome that hardship, the feeling of satisfaction you get when defeating a boss is really unlike any other you'll ever experience in a video game, I promise you. Some new mechanics are present in Elden Ring. FromSoftware really seems to have taken every positive thing from their past Souls games and put it all into this one game. For example, the stealth mechanics, which is clearly from Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. There's also this counter guard move, where if you block an attack and press the heavy attack, you perform this really powerful counter attack move. You can jump attack now, which can be powerful. Some weapons have these special skills, which I think I brought up earlier, like the Katana's Unsheath skill, or Ash of War, the game's calling it. Some weapons, of course, have very unique skills, and some you can put on Ash of War onto it. Unfortunately, for the unique weapons, you can't really put on any Ash of War into it. And you know, all of these can be very useful in the game's combat or when fighting a boss. There's a lot of things you can take advantage here to make the game easier for yourself. You got summons and talismans also. Now, of course, this isn't an in-depth review, so I'm really not going to spend a lot more time detailing about the game's combat and mechanics, though they are great. The weapon variety is honestly fantastic. There are really so much weapons to try out, all feeling almost unique in their own way, though very similar, of course. Some weapons have stat requirements, like you'll have weapons that'll require 30 intelligence or 20 faith or something like that. And if you meet the stat requirements, you'll be able to properly use them the way they should. I personally found myself comfortable using the katanas. I eventually ended up dual-wielding these katanas. There's just a lot of new stuff to try out in EldenRing that I feel like I still have yet to try out. There's really a lot to try out in this game, and there's so many areas to go, and also plenty of bosses to fight. There's a lot of playstyles you can go with, or I guess the Souls community call them builds, I think. There are like magic builds where you mostly cast magic. There's casual sword and shield playstyles, which maybe for beginners, I think that's more than enough. You can also mix up your playstyles if you want. That's also the beauty of this game. You can play however you want. There's really a lot of options for you. Of course, this varies on the class you choose, but at some point in the game, I think you can change that. Honestly, when you're playing this game, just choose a playstyle to your liking. Anything to help you beat the bosses. You know, for the people that mostly use magic builds, I personally see no shame in using magic builds. As long as you beat the bosses, that is more than enough. As I said earlier, I went with the dual-wielding samurai that uses some magic sometimes. Some say this game could be grindy, and my response to that is, honestly, it really depends which enemy you're deciding to farm. Honestly, my advice is to find an enemy that drops a bunch of runes. I guess it really just depends on where you farm. This game does have a co-op and PvP feature, so you don't really have to play alone if you want. You can face off against other players if you want, or help out a friend. As I said, this game's world is fantastic. I was worried about a Souls game going open world, but I'm glad everything turned out great. Me personally, I think this is the best open world game that I've played in a while. Better yet, this might be one of the best games I think I've ever played in such a long time. You know, let me just say this for anyone that's interested in trying this game out. This is a Souls game. It is going to be difficult. It is going to be hard. And if you can't handle that, then I'm really sorry, but you really probably shouldn't be playing this if you can't handle, getting beaten so many times. It's really hard for me to say that, especially on how good this game is. Because, look, these games are meant to be engaging and bring out the best in you. You overcome hardships, you get really good. This game will give you a feeling that I bet no other game can give you. But again, if you want casual fun, just average casual fun, you probably won't enjoy this. And it really pains me to say that because I think this game is really good. I'd say this game is a masterpiece. This is the best game I've played at launch in such a long time. Day one it worked. Day one has a lot of content in it. I feel like I still have yet to experience a lot of things in this game after beating it. And I feel like there's a bunch of things that I haven't brought up about this game, but as I said, this is not an in-depth review. I haven't brought up the crafting feature in this game. Of course, this game is massive. The game is really good. It's got decent story, it's got decent lore, great gameplay. Elden Ring. Overall, this game is a masterpiece.
Goodbye.